Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to ancient Rome, somewhere between the scent of dust sweat and roasting chickpeas to the belly of the Colosseum. Not the marble seats or sun-drenched views you see on postcards. No, you're headed down the back staircases into the tunnels. The air thickens, torchlight flickers, and just like that, you're no longer a 21st century observer. You're in the sandals, barely laced, barely yours, of someone about to step onto the blood-soaked sand. The walls sweat with condensation. Or is that your own fear pooling on the stone? Hard to tell. You hear it first, muffled roars, cheers, and something else. Metal scraping bone, maybe. The sounds bounce around these underground chambers, like the Colosseum itself is laughing. You don't understand the language, but you get the gist. You're not here for a stroll. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're led by a guard whose job title might as well be grumpy guy with a whip. He doesn't talk, just shoves you forward until you trip over a body. No, not dead. Just trying not to cry. He might be from Gaul, maybe Carthage. He doesn't look older than 16. His wrists are bound with rope, same as yours. Above you, the arena groans. That's not poetic. It literally groans. Stone creaks. Trapdoors thud. The Roman Colosseum is alive in all the wrong ways. And no, you're not here because you're a trained gladiator. You were arrested for, let's say, public disrespect to a minor official. Maybe you were drunk. Maybe you insulted a statue. Maybe you looked at someone the wrong way while being a foreigner. Point is, you're now classified as damnati ad ludum, condemned to the games. Not a great club to be in. Here's the twist. Most people think of gladiators as these oiled-up professional brutes swinging swords in slow motion. But in reality, the early morning matches were often a buffet of what we'd now call unpaid interns of death. Prisoners, debtors, enemies of the state. One unlucky guy even got sentenced for writing a bad poem about the emperor's nose. True story. His match was against a bear. It ended as you'd expect. You shuffle into a holding cell, no bigger than a broom closet. The air tastes like iron. Someone hands you a piece of barley bread and a goat skin of what might be water or might be vinegar. There's no time to ask. The schedule is tight. Executions before lunch. Beast fights before noon. The good stuff happens later, when the sun gets high and the blood dries fast. And make no mistake, this is a machine. The Colosseum runs on a schedule that would make your local DMV jealous. Over 50,000 people are seated, shaded by a complex network of sails called the Valerium. They get cushions. You get sand in your mouth. A man enters robes, 2 clean rings on every finger. He doesn't look at you so much as count you. 1, 2, 3. He frowns. You suspect someone important wanted 10 bodies for the opener, and now there are only 9. There's muttering a shrug. Looks like they'll run the match anyway. It's at this moment you realize no one cares about fairness. This isn't sport. It's storytelling with a kill count. A bell rings, an actual bronze bell, cracked and crusted, and the gate in front of you slides open. Light floods in like a slap. You're pushed forward, squinting, stumbling into the arena. It's loud. It's hot. The sand is the wrong kind of red. From here, it almost feels like theater. You can't even see individuals in the crowd, just a sea of faces melting into one roar. The emperor is somewhere up there, lounging under an awning, probably eating figs. His thumb is resting for now, neutral. And you're the opening act. You're not armed yet. That's by design. They like the tension. You and your unlucky companions are corralled into the center like confused cattle, while the announcer, because yes, there is one, recites a list of crimes so exaggerated you'd think you murdered 10 senators with a breadstick. A gate opens across the arena. Your opponent steps out. Or maybe it's not a person. Sometimes it's a boar, or a man dressed as Mercury, wielding a trident. Once it was a blindfolded priest and a goose. That's not a joke. Historians still argue whether that event was symbolic satire or just a really bad day in scheduling. You glance to your right. One of your fellow captives has fainted. The crowd boos. They don't like anticlimax. A sword is tossed at your feet. It's too heavy, too dull. You pick it up anyway. And you realize in that moment this isn't a fight. It's a performance. And you're the blood-colored confetti. You don't get to decide who you fight. That's made clear early on, long before you even step onto the sand. In fact, the moment you're condemned to the games, your role becomes something closer to livestock than soldier. Who you're up against isn't based on fairness, skill level, or experience. No, it's based on mood, or politics, or who owes who a favor, or sometimes just to mix things up on whatever names happen to be pulled from a small wooden bowl by a half-drunk official with a hangover. And you quickly realize most of the people in this lineup aren't gladiators in the way modern movies show them. Some are criminals, yes, but others, a Greek actor who mocked a senator's haircut, a teacher who couldn't pay taxes, a Germanic prisoner who doesn't speak Latin and doesn't know this isn't supposed to be a duel. It's supposed to be a death sentence with choreography. One man across from you has a limp. Another has clearly never held a weapon. The woman next to you was a midwife caught in a raid. She still smells faintly of rosemary and something burnt. She's shaking. You don't blame her. And just to make things even more confusing, not everyone wants to die. Some are volunteers. Yes, volunteers. They're called octorati. These are free men who, for one reason or another, usually choose to become gladiators. It's seen as shameful in polite Roman society, but in the Colosseum, they're given real armor, sometimes even respect. They sign contracts with terms like no whining, you might lose a limb, and death is not refundable. The difference is obvious. The octaratus next to you has a clean scar on his temple-trimmed hair and a smirk that makes your stomach twist. He's done this before, probably more than once. He knows where to stand when the sun's in your eyes. He knows how to aim a strike so it looks lethal, but isn't quite. And he knows how to drag the fight out just long enough to get the crowd yelling. You, meanwhile, are wondering how sharp a sword has to be before it counts as good enough. In theory, matches are supposed to be fair. That's what the official scripts claim. Each bout is advertised with dramatic flair. Two mighty warriors face off in a test of strength and honor. But the reality, one might be a decorated secutor with years of training, while the other is a half-starved fisherman from Gaul who lost his oar and ended up on the wrong boat. The Roman organizers, called lanistae, don't care about fairness. They care about variety. Variety sells. So they pit the oddest combinations together, a heavily armored murmillo with a massive shield versus a nimble retiarius, armed only with a net and a trident. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the guy with the net trips over his own rope and gets impaled in 7 seconds. And sometimes it's not even two people. Occasionally, they throw in animals. You've heard rumors, some probably true, about elephants, tigers, wolves, and even crocodiles. One particularly dramatic show involved a rhino. They built fake trees just to make the setting look like North Africa. The rhino didn't care. It went straight for the nearest target and flattened a would-be hero so fast that even the audience gasped. There are betting pools, too. Rich spectators wager on who'll last longest, who'll bleed the most, or who will scream loudest before their throat closes. You've heard whispers of bets about how many toes will be left on the ground by the end of the day. You hope that's a joke. It probably isn't. And speaking of screams, you hear them constantly, even in the quieter corners of the holding pens. Practice screams, real ones that end too abruptly. The worst are the ones that don't end at all. Still, the organizers insist the matches are glorious tests of Roman strength. Right, glorious like throwing an unarmed baker against a former centurion with shoulder armor and a grudge. Some of the unfairness is planned. Entire shows are designed around spectacle. Imagine this. A condemned man dressed in patchy lion skin is forced to fight 6 trained fighters, each representing a different Roman god. One carries a thunderbolt prop. Another has wings. They kill him slowly in front of 40,000 people. And the title of the show, Wrath of Olympus. Historians still argue whether these mythological death reenactments were viewed as sacred rituals or just elaborate murder disguised as art. Either way, you're not thrilled about the possibility of being cast as a minor character in someone else's drama. You don't want to be the goat sacrificed at the altar of crowd engagement. But here's the real kicker. Sometimes the outcome is decided before the match begins. Certain fighters are fan favorites. They have nicknames, stylized helmets, and even groupies. Yes, groupies. Upper-class Roman women have been known to send love notes, locks of hair, and even personal gifts to their favorite gladiators. Some get tattoos of their champions' names. It's all very dramatic, very public, and very one-sided. You don't have fans. You have a loose sandal and a borrowed knife. So when the organizers realize that pairing you with one of their star fighters might build the tension, they go for it, even if it means you're woefully outmatched, because tension makes the crowd lean in, and leaning in makes them spend more money on wine and olives. And spending money keeps the emperor happy. And what happens if the crowd feels bored? Well, there's always the trapdoor option. You've seen it once already. A man lost consciousness during his first swing. Before the crowd could start booing, the floor beneath him slid open. A rope yanked him down. You don't know where he went. You just know the next fighter had better posture. You also learn the hard way that losing doesn't always mean dying. Sometimes you're allowed to survive, sometimes, but that survival depends on a series of impossible-to-predict factors. How loud the audience cheers, how bored the emperor feels, whether the birds flew in a lucky pattern that morning, and maybe most importantly, how entertaining you were, regardless of skill. One man limped into your pen last week with one eye swollen shut and a shoulder hanging limp. He smiled. The emperor laughed, he said. I tripped over my own sword and fell on my face. The crowd had roared. The emperor gave the mercy signal. He lived. So now apparently you're supposed to consider comedic timing part of your combat strategy. And in case you're wondering, yes, even in death, your story might not end. Some bodies are dragged off looted for gear and dumped into communal graves. Others are carted around for display, propped upright with painted eyelids. Look at this one, someone might say. He fought bravely, screamed only once. It's a mess, all of it. And as you sit there, surrounded by coughing prisoners, snickering veterans, and terrified newcomers, you realize you're not part of a battle. You're part of an algorithm, one designed to delight the masses regardless of whether you breathe at the end. And just as that thought settles in your chest, someone calls your name. You're next. The man calling your name doesn't look like a soldier. He's wearing a wine-stained tunic and sandals that haven't been cleaned in weeks. But his voice is sharp, commanding, and carries the weight of someone who's seen 100 people die before lunch. You stand legs shaky, the too heavy sword clutched in your hand, like it might make a difference. He doesn't explain what's about to happen. He just waves for you to follow. You're herded down another stone corridor, this one slick with something that might be water or might be blood. The difference doesn't matter anymore. You keep moving. Overhead you hear cheers, louder now. There's chanting and drums. Somewhere up there, a match is underway. You hear the wet thud of metal against meat. The crowd erupts. You pause for a moment, half hoping they've forgotten about you. They haven't. Instead, the gatekeeper turns, and for the first time you see something that makes your stomach turn a chart. It's nailed to a post. Lines of names, scribbled Latin, a crude sketch of today's matches. and next to your name, a symbol you don't recognize, but which the gatekeeper smirks at. You got lucky, he says. They matched you with a crowd favorite. You don't feel lucky. This is the part no one tells you about the matchmaking process in the Colosseum, is part politics, part theater, and part personal vendetta. The curator, the man in charge of staging the day's games, isn't trying to create a fair fight. He's trying to make a show. He has to balance expectations. If the emperor yawns, he's failed. If the crowd jeers, he's failed. If you die too fast, failed too slowly, also failed. So, how do they decide who fights whom? Easy. They play gods. Some decisions are made in back rooms the night before, over wine and cheese and betting tokens. High-ranking officials might suggest certain pairings. Let's see the Spaniard against the Egyptian. I hear they hate each other. Others come from bribes. A rich patron wants to see his favorite survive a little longer, so he pays to have him matched against an inexperienced prisoner. You. Then there's revenge. Sometimes a politician wants to punish someone publicly. What better way than to throw him in against a trained killer in front of 50,000 people? You're not just being punished. You're being humiliated. The system is full of petty drama. You've heard whispers of a senator's son who lost a bet and ended up volunteering as a gladiator. His match was suddenly upgraded from a scrawny opponent to a disgraced veteran with nothing left to lose. The result, not pretty. But the crowd loved it. Historians still argue whether matchmaking in the Colosseum was entirely random, partially rigged, or fully scripted. Most agree it was at least half performance art, carefully arranged to blend spectacle with politics. But no matter how it happened, one thing was always true: the fighters had no say. Back in the tunnel, you're handed something, a helmet. It smells like moldy leather and has a dent the size of an apple on the left side. You try to adjust it, but it shifts every time you breathe. Your handler shrugs. Good enough, he mutters. Now comes the worst part, the wait. You're placed just behind a wooden gate. On the other side is the arena. You can hear the sand crunching beneath boots. The current fight must be wrapping up. You hear the crowd rise, gasps, cheers, a chant. Then silence, followed by the sharp clang of a gong. One body leaves, one stays. A trumpet sounds. Your match is next. There's no pep talk, no rules explained, just the sound of the gate creaking upward. Bright light floods in. You squint, step forward, and just like that, you're in the open. The Colosseum is massive. You've never seen so many people in one place. Rows and rows of spectators, their faces blurred by the heat and dust. You can't tell where the sky ends and the noise begins. It's like walking into the belly of a god. Your opponent is already there. He's taller than you, broader. His armor gleams. He wears a crested helmet that casts a shadow over his face. But you know who he is. Everyone does. You've heard the chants Titus the Bear. Supposedly, he once killed 2 men with a single swing. He bows slightly to the emperor's box, then turns toward you. The crowd goes quiet. You're told to raise your weapon. You do unsteadily. He raises his own. The gong sounds again, and the game begins. At first he circles, slow, measuring you. He doesn't strike, just watches. Then when your foot slips slightly in the sand, he lunges, not with force, but with grace. He knocks your sword away, doesn't follow up. Instead, he steps back. Laughter from the crowd. You've just learned another rule. The match isn't just about killing, it's about entertaining. And right now, Titus is putting on a show. You're the warm-up act, the comic relief. He fakes another strike. You flinch. The crowd roars. You try to swing. He blocks effortlessly. The impact sends a jolt through your arm. For a second, you almost drop the sword. He raises his own. But again, no killing blow. Instead, he uses the edge to slap the side of your helmet. The noise rings in your ears. More laughter. Somewhere high above, the emperor waves a lazy hand. Is it approval? Boredom? Hard to tell. Then, without warning, Titus lunges for real. You stumble backward, barely blocking the strike. You feel the impact all the way through your ribs. Another swing, another block. But your arms are weakening. Your breaths are short and fast. He sees it, and then he pauses. He steps back again, looks toward the emperor, then to the crowd. He raises his arms, soaking in the cheers. You realize he's waiting. In some matches, the final blow isn't his decision. It's the crowd's. If they cheer loud enough, maybe you live. If not, the crowd begins to chant again. A name. His name. You drop to one knee, partly from exhaustion, partly because you don't know what else to do. He looks down at you, then up at the emperor's box. A moment of silence. And then the emperor nods. Titus steps forward. Your heart stops. He swings not at your throat, but at the sand beside your foot. The blade lands with a thunk, a symbol, a performance. The crowd explodes. You've been spared, for now. You're not sure what just happened. Your ears are ringing. The roar of the crowd sounds like the sea, crashing and retreating. Your chest heaves, sweat stinging your eyes, and your knees threaten to buckle under your own weight. Titus the Bear stands still, one hand still raised as the applause washes over him. He doesn't look at you again. He doesn't need to. His message was clear. You were part of the act, not the fight. Someone grabs your arm, roughly one of the handlers. You're pulled to your feet and ushered toward one of the side gates. The crowd doesn't notice. They're already focused on the next spectacle, a woman in gilded armor entering the arena on horseback. Your old news, forgotten within seconds. The moment you're through the gate, the light disappears again. It's colder in here, damp. You're led past a row of injured fighters. One is groaning softly, clutching a bandaged leg. Another is just staring at the wall. His eyes don't move. His mouth is open. You suspect no one's spoken to him in hours. You're shoved into a small cell with a dirt floor and an overturned amphora in the corner. That's your seat. Maybe your toilet. Could be both. The gate slams shut behind you. You're alone. You sit, slowly, and try to figure out how to breathe again. Eventually, someone comes by with a bit of food. Dried dates, half a heel of bread, a cup of something too warm to be water. You sip it anyway. Your hands are shaking, and that's when it hits you. They could have killed you, easily. Titus could have run you through. The emperor could have given the signal. The crowd could have screamed for blood, but none of them did. Which raises a terrible question. Why, maybe they liked the way you flinched. Maybe you reminded someone of their son. Maybe they thought you'd be funnier next time. Because that's the real trick of the Colosseum. It's not just a place to die. It's a place to be remembered. And those who survive, they get brought back. You don't get to rest. You don't get released. You get recast. There's already a man leaning against the opposite wall. He smiles faintly when he sees you. First time he asks, you nod. He gestures toward the bruises on your ribs. They're going to match you again. Probably tomorrow. Maybe later today, if someone important dies early. You should stretch. You don't ask what he means by important. You already know. There's a hierarchy here. Fighters with names, fans, or talent get second chances. People like you, you're cannon fodder. But you're cannon fodder that didn't die. That changes things. Somewhere behind you, you hear a cheer, then a groan. Someone's just lost. Someone else is stepping into the sand. You press your ear against the wall, trying to understand the sounds. Swords clanging, shields splintering, a horn probably announcing an animal match. You remember the stories, elephants, tigers. Once they say someone smuggled in a giraffe. It didn't last long. No one knows if it died in the arena or backstage. You ask the man across from you what his worst match was. He doesn't hesitate. The dwarf chariot team? You blink. The what? He nods. 4 dwarves on goat-drawn chariots, armed with slings. They circled us for 20 minutes, pelting rocks and laughing. I lost a tooth. You try not to laugh, but it comes out anyway. It hurts your ribs. Still, the absurdity is real. The Colosseum isn't just a battlefield. It's a circus. A blood-streaked, gold-trimmed, goat-powered circus. Historians still argue whether such matches were common or exaggerated. Roman records are notoriously biased, and much of what we know comes from murals and gossip. But one thing is certain, the audience craved variety. And if that meant watching you fight blindfolded against 2 flamingos, well, they'd pay extra for the ticket. You don't sleep that night. Not really. Your body aches in too many places. Your thoughts circle like vultures. In the morning, you're summoned again, not to fight, but to train. That's right. After nearly dying, you now have to report to a training arena to prepare for future matches. The sand there is cleaner, the air less thick. The trainer, a former gladiator named Marcellus, with a nose bent in 3 directions and a scar that starts at his temple and disappears beneath his tunic. He doesn't speak much, just points. Sword, block, duck. You try, you fail. He sighs. Eventually, you manage to parry a blow without dropping your weapon. He raises one eyebrow. Good. You might last longer next time. Next time. He nods. You're marked now. People remember you. That means more fights, bigger crowds, maybe even a role in one of the reenactments. Your blood runs cold. You've heard about the reenactments. They're not plays. They're death sentences with costumes. The trainers rehearse scenes from history or mythology, famous battles, murders, executions. And you, the fighter, are cast in one of the roles. The catch, the loser, actually dies. If you're reenacting the death of Hector, you'll be dragged around the arena bleeding until you stop moving. One reenactment last week involved a man dressed as Icarus. They tied wooden wings to his back, set them on fire, and threw him from a platform. The crowd cheered. The ashes smelled like chicken for hours. You ask Marcellus if he thinks that'll happen to you. He shrugs. Depends. Can you act? You don't know. You've never tried. You were a baker, or maybe a thief, or a fisherman. Your old life is already fading. You train until your arms feel like noodles, until your legs tremble with every step. And when you finally collapse, Marcellus doesn't scold you. He nods. That's enough for today. That night, you're returned to your cell. The amphora is still overturned. The bread is staler. But somehow it feels more familiar, more yours. You lie on your side, eyes closed, breathing slowly. The roar of the Colosseum echoes in your skull, softer now, almost like a lullaby, and you wonder if you survive long enough. Do you become one of them, one of the legends, one of the names scratched into tablets and whispered about in bathhouses? Or do you just become really good at dying slowly? You're awakened, not by a trumpet or a shout, or even a soldier's boot, but by something far worse, the growl of an animal that has not been fed. It's close. The wall behind you is vibrating faintly, a dull rhythm, like someone thumping a wet drum with claws. You sit up. The cell is dark, the corridor outside dimly lit by a few guttering torches, their lights stuttering with each hiss of wind. From somewhere just beyond the stone, you hear the unmistakable scrape of a paw against metal. It's pacing. Whatever's in that cage is pacing, and it wants out. You're not told what your match is that day. That's part of the fun, apparently, the element of surprise. But you've already heard whispers through the walls today. Is Venationis Day. Beast hunts. Not for sport, not for food, for entertainment. The Romans import animals from across the empire. Lions from Numidia. Panthers from India. Bears from the Alps. Crocodiles from Egypt. The sheer logistics of it all is staggering. But the result, you might end up face to face with something that didn't even know what a Roman was until it was stuffed into a ship and starved half to death for a show. You're given a spear. It's light, too light. The wooden shaft is cracked near the middle, wrapped in leather strips that do almost nothing. You hold it awkwardly, unsure whether it's meant to pierce or prod. "Don't stab too early," says the guard at your side. "Let it chase you a bit. The crowd likes that." You blink. "Let it chase me." He grins. "It'll build tension." You're led once again to the gate. The sunlight hits you like a wave, almost hot enough to scorch the skin. The crowd is already in full swing. A man is being dragged out by his ankles, what's left of him. You don't look too closely. You don't want to. Your opponent is already in the arena. It's a leopard. Emaciated ribs, visible eyes, too wide. It looks like it hasn't eaten in days. That's probably true. The Beastmaster knows how to time hunger for maximum aggression. The gatekeeper whispers that it's from Mauritania. Exotic, beautiful, murderous. You're pushed forward. The gate closes behind you. The leopard doesn't move at first. It crouches, low tail, twitching. Its gaze fixes on you, not confused, not afraid, just focused. The same way you might look at a roast chicken after a long day. You swallow, and then it moves. Not a bound, a glide, a sudden effortless acceleration. You raise your spear, but it's like throwing a twig at a thunderstorm. The beast swerves, not attacking yet, just testing you. The crowd screams in delight. You pivot, back away. Try to keep the spear between you and the blur of fur and muscle. This is what they came for. The chase. You dart left, it follows. You feint right. It circles. For a moment, the two of you are locked in a dance. Neither of you understands one. Trying to live, the other trying to eat. A spear suddenly lands in the sand beside you, not thrown tossed from the sidelines. The crowd wants more action, maybe a better weapon, maybe just variety. You lunge for it, narrowly missing a swipe from the leopard's claws. The beast's roar is high-pitched, almost feline, but filled with rage and hunger. You grip the new spear, heavier, balanced. This might be your only chance. You wait. Steady. Breathe. Marcellus's voice echoes in your mind. Don't rush. Let them rush you. The leopard pounces. You duck, twist, and jam the spear upward. It connects. Sort of. The tip glances off its ribcage, gouging fur, but not stopping it. You're knocked sideways, tumbling into the sand. The spear goes flying. You're on your back. The leopard lands a few feet away, disoriented, but not dead. You scramble. Blood trickles from your arm. You can't tell if it's yours or the animal's. The beast turns lower now, tail whipping wildly. It's angry. And that's when something strange happens. A trapdoor opens. From it, a man steps out, helmeted, armored, holding a net and a trident. A retiarius. You're not the main act anymore. The man gestures for you to move aside. You obey, crawling backward in the sand as he engages the beast. The leopard circles again, but now the netman is ready. The crowd shifts its attention. The volume rises. And you're forgotten. again. Just like that, you limp to the edge of the arena. A gate opens. A hand reaches out. You're pulled inside. And once again, the Colosseum decides you get to live. Historians still debate whether animals like leopards were truly starved for days or merely agitated before a match. Some suggest clever handlers used specific scents to drive them into a frenzy. Others argue the cruelty was simply a matter of policy. Regardless, you've seen enough now to know fairness doesn't enter into it. Back in the tunnels, you slump against the wall. You've lost count of the bruises, the scratches, the times your life was supposed to end. A medicus eventually shows up. He applies a thick paste that smells like vinegar and mold to your arm. Says nothing. You nod in thanks. He nods back, already moving on to someone who lost a finger. As the day ends, you pass a man being carried in a stretcher. He's not moving. Another lays still beside him, but he's breathing. Barely. You overhear a handler sigh. Should have saved the leopard for the finale. You lie back in your cell that night, staring at the cracked ceiling. You can still hear the roar of the crowd echoing in your ears. Still feel the tension of the leopard's breath on your skin. And you think, I'm not a fighter. I'm not a hero. I'm not even a name. I'm a variable. A piece on the board. And tomorrow, I'll be moved again. The Colosseum is quiet tonight, well as quiet as it ever gets. The echo of cleaning crews, scraping dried blood off marble, the low clank of weapons being re-racked, the shuffle of guards walking their rounds. It's a different world after sundown. No cheering, no drums, no dying, just stone shadows and sore bodies. You're still awake because sleep doesn't come easy anymore. Not after you realize the real danger isn't always the beast. Sometimes it's the man fighting beside you. You met him earlier today, dressed in gold-plated armor, laughing like the sand belonged to him. He was a provocateur, a type of gladiator, known for frontline aggression. Think of them as the Colosseum's rock stars, flashy, loud, dangerous, and more importantly, trained. He wasn't brought in by force. He wasn't sentenced to death. He chose this life, signed a contract, took the oath, lived in better quarters, ate better food, had fans. His name was Scaevola, or so he claimed. It means left-handed. Whether that was true or just branding, you'll never know. All you know is this: he strutted through the tunnel today like he owned the empire. Armor, polished helmet, plume, freshly dyed, crimson. He passed by your holding pen, glanced sideways, and smirked. You're the one the crowd spared twice now, huh? His tone was friendly, the kind of friendly that makes your skin crawl. You nodded, unsure what else to do. He winked. Don't get used to it. And then he was gone. That's the other side of this world. Not all gladiators are condemned. Some are celebrities. They train in ludi, or gladiator schools, under lanistae, part trainers, part slave owners. The best of them are household names. Their faces appear on pottery, on wall paintings, sometimes even carved into rings worn by bored housewives who daydream during dinner. They have fighting styles, themes, nicknames. Scaevola wears gold. Another, known as the Raven, fights in black and never speaks. There's a man called Lupus who growls before striking and howls after a kill. All part of the theater, and they're good. Terrifyingly good. They move like dancers, strike like thunder, and understand every inch of the arena, like it's home. You're barely hanging on. But here's the worst part. Sometimes you're paired with them. Not against them, no. That would be murder. You're paired alongside them. Because the Colosseum loves irony. Imagine this. Today's match was a group melee. You and 5 others, most of them terrified or already injured, were paired with Scaevola. The crowd was told, "Watch the gold lion lead his charge." Everyone cheered. You didn't, because you realized something quickly. Scaevola's not fighting with you. He's performing around you. As the horn sounded and the gates opened, you found yourself in the middle of the arena. Again, sand underfoot, sun overhead, eyes everywhere. On the other side were your opponents, another cluster of misfits, and one shining star, a secutor with 24 kills to his name. The match was clearly meant to be a mirror, one golden boy per side, each surrounded by disposable bodies like you. The fight began in chaos. You tried to stay alive, tried to keep your distance, tried to remember what Marcellus taught you. Keep your guard up, pivot, from the hips, don't chase. But Scaevola didn't care. He cut through the fray with choreographed violence, slicing hamstrings, knocking weapons from hands, flipping one man with a showy shoulder slam. Every kill was accompanied by a pose, a pause, a glance to the Emperor's box. At one point, you and another nobody had one of the opponents cornered. You raised your sword for a finishing strike, finally your moment. That's when Scaevola shoved you aside and delivered the blow himself. He smiled as the crowd cheered. You were background noise. Historians still argue whether these pairings were designed to test new fighters or to inflate the kill counts of veterans. Some suggest it was for spectacle, like watching a lion move among sheep. Others say it was punishment designed to remind everyone who the real stars were. Whatever the reason, it hurt. Not just physically, though you did take a shield to the jaw from a misjudged blow, but mentally, spiritually. You're not a teammate. You're a prop. And that night, as Scaevola passed your cell again, he tossed something through the bars. A tooth. Human. Probably not yours. Keep it, he said, grinning. For luck. You didn't thank him. You buried the tooth in the dirt corner of your cell, like it was cursed. Later that evening, you spoke to an old man whose name you never caught. He's been here a long time, long enough to limp permanently and talk in riddles. He said, "The golden ones fall harder." You asked what he meant. He said, "Crowds get bored. Pretty armor doesn't stop betrayal." And then he laughed himself to sleep. That stayed with you, because the longer you're here, the more you understand there are no sides in the arena, no teammates, no allies, just temporary arrangements. The crowd may cheer today and boo tomorrow. The emperor may spare you one morning and feed you to dogs the next. Even the golden ones, especially the golden ones, know this. They play it like a game, but deep down they're sweating behind the masks, beneath the swagger, because they know all it takes is one stumble, one twist of fate, one lion that doesn't follow choreography, and then they're like you, bleeding, forgotten, buried beneath sand that drinks every drop without blinking. So you lie back against the wall, staring into the dark, still clutching your side where the shield slammed you. You survived again. But survival's not enough anymore. You want to matter. And that in the Colosseum is the most dangerous wish of all. You wake to the sound of something wet hitting stone. It's not raining. It's a body. The handlers are clearing the cells again, dragging out those who didn't recover or didn't matter. You avert your gaze, but the sound lingers, skin slapping against marble limbs, trailing like forgotten laundry. The Colosseum is a place where morning warm-ups mean executions, not rehearsals, not drills, executions. They happen early, before the real games begin, before the nobles arrive, before the wine flows, when the crowd is still small and the sun hasn't scorched the upper rows. You're herded with others into a holding area, and even before the guard speaks, you can smell it. The tang of old blood, the musk of fear. A man beside you is mumbling. You can't tell if he's praying or muttering a recipe. Either way, it doesn't help. You're told today is about punishment. That word hangs in the air like smoke. The crowd today isn't here to watch warriors fight. They're here for a message, a very Roman kind of message. Step out of line, and you will bleed publicly and pointlessly. The victims, a handful of condemned criminals. Their crimes vary wildly. Stealing grain, deserting the army, killing a tax collector. But the punishment is the same death, served theatrically. You stand in a row, watching, as the first poor soul is shoved into the center of the arena. No weapon, no armor, just a simple tunic already stained with someone else's blood. The executioner enters next. He's wearing polished armor, but it's more for show than protection. This man isn't here to fight. He's here to perform. He walks slowly, deliberately, soaking in the hush that falls over the early crowd. Then, with a swing that's almost lazy, he removes the prisoner's head. You hear the cheer ripple like a cough across the stands. That was the warm-up. Now things get interesting. Next up is a group of 3. They're bound together at the wrists and told to run. You don't understand why until the second gate opens and 2 hunting dogs, lean and starved, are released. They don't bark. They don't hesitate. They charge. The 3 prisoners stumble forward, but it's no use. One trips. The dogs are on him instantly. teeth flashing. The crowd roars. The other two try to keep moving, but the bindings pull them back. It's all over in under a minute. You flinch as one of the dogs is recalled with a sharp whistle. The other is still chewing. A man near you throws up. The guard laughs and slaps his back. You'll get used to it. You won't. But here's the thing. This isn't chaos. It's choreography. Every scream is timed. Every kill is spaced out. There are musicians in the upper galleries playing soft flute melodies between deaths. A trumpet fanfare follows each execution, as if to say, and now, the next act. One of the more creative deaths today involves a wooden bull. It's hollow. You've heard about these, but this is your first time seeing one up close. A man is shoved inside the hatch, locked shut, and the bull is placed over a fire pit. As the metal heats, the man begins to scream. The sculpted mouth of the bull amplifies the sound, turning it into a ghastly groan that echoes across the stands like a myth come alive. Some claim the invention came from Sicily. Others say it was purely Roman flair. Historians still argue whether the bull was truly designed to sing with the victim's cries, or if that's just a legend whispered to scare children. Either way, you'll never forget that sound. Eventually, it's your turn to enter the arena, not to be executed, but to clean. That's right. You and several others are handed wooden paddles and buckets of sand and told to cover the blood before the real fights begin. Because the Colosseum isn't just a place of death, it's a place of presentation. No one wants to watch a duel on a battlefield slick with gore. So you scrub, you scatter sand, you level footprints. You remove the visible evidence of what just happened. But even as you clean, you know it's pointless. By noon, the blood will be back. You pass a severed hand someone forgot to collect. You don't look closely. You just scoop more sand over it. This is your life now. And still the crowd grows. By mid-morning, the lower seats are full. Merchants hawk garum-soaked pastries and wine. Children laugh. Noblewomen giggle behind painted fans. They're not here for punishment. They're here for spectacle. But the executions have set the tone. The games that follow will be bloodier, more vicious. The audience is warmed up emotionally, morally, ready to cheer as someone's lung gets punctured. You return to the tunnels, your tunic stained and stiff. No one thanks you. No one speaks. In the hallway, you pass a soldier adjusting a decorative execution axe. He whistles a jaunty tune. And somewhere behind you, another gate creaks open. Another victim steps into the light. You don't turn around. They blindfold you before the match. Not as punishment, not even as intimidation. For fun. The crowd loves novelty, and someone, probably a bored senator in need of a new thrill, has suggested today's games begin with what they're calling a dance of fools. You're one of the fools. You're led into the arena by two handlers who are laughing as they shove you forward. The blindfold is scratchy, smells like old sweat, and lets in almost no light. You stumble, nearly fall, and the roar of the crowd surges as if someone scored a goal. You reach out, trying to get your bearings. Sand hot and loose underfoot. Somewhere to your left, a gate opens. You hear hooves, then jingling, not armor, bells. You hear laughter, not just from the crowd, but from your opponent. It's high-pitched, playful. Then someone slaps you with a stick. You flinch, turn wildly, swing, and hit nothing. Another tap. On your back this time. The blindfold stays in place, knotted tight. You can't tell what direction the attacks are coming from. You hear more bells, then the unmistakable squeak of stilts. Stilts. Some brilliant Roman decided today's match would feature a team of costumed performers, dwarves on stilts, armed with wooden sticks and padded clubs. Their job is to hit you repeatedly from a safe height. Your job. Try to hit them back, blindfolded. It's a game, a circus act. But there's a twist. Eventually, they get bored. The crowd wants blood, and the stilts are replaced with real weapons. You don't know when it happens. One moment you're flailing at thin air, the next a sharp pain slices across your shoulder. That wasn't wood, that was steel. You tear off the blindfold, blinking wildly in the sunlight, and find yourself surrounded by 3 opponents, still balancing high on their stilts, but now carrying short swords and curved daggers. You look down. Someone tossed you a dagger. It's bent. No one's laughing anymore. Historians still debate whether events like these were real or exaggerated in later writings. But records from Suetonius and others mention comedy executions in which victims were dressed in costumes or forced into ridiculous situations before being killed. Was it satire, entertainment, social commentary? Historians argue. The crowd. They just wanted a story. You backpedal duck as a stilt soldier swings downward. You jab upward with the bent dagger. It glances off the armor plate strapped to his shin. He kicks you in the chest, and you go sprawling into the sand. Another circles around you, jabbing with something that looks like a giant fork. You roll just in time. The weapon sinks into the sand where your face had been. You manage to get to your feet, the world spinning. A third opponent loses balance and crashes to the ground. The crowd shrieks in delight. You rush him. Your dagger finds a weak spot between the chest plate and his rib. He gasps, tries to speak, then goes limp. The arena hushes. The crowd hadn't expected you to land a kill. You stand there panting, bleeding dagger in hand. 1 dwarf dead, 2 still standing. And then someone laughs. Not a cruel laugh, not mockery, just honest surprise. Then another person laughs, then another, and then the applause begins. Scattered at first, then rising. You killed someone, yes. But the absurdity of it all, the blindfold, the stilts, the sheer ridiculousness of the match, it worked. It was funny. You've just become a fan favorite. Not because you fought well, because you fought ridiculously. You return to the tunnels, head spinning. Someone hands you a piece of dried meat. Someone else slaps your back and calls you the dancing dagger. It's not a title you want, but it spreads. By evening, a boy is selling wax figurines of you in the stalls outside the arena. Tiny figures of a blindfolded man with a dagger kneeling next to a fallen, stilted opponent. You're a joke, but you're alive. And in the Colosseum, that's a promotion. That night, Marcellus visits your cell. He leans against the doorway, arms crossed. Never seen anyone survive the stilt act, he says. You shrug. He smirks. They'll use you again. Probably soon. The crowd's hungry for part 2. You groan. He leans closer. Lean into it. Next time, trip on purpose. Make them laugh again. It might save your life. You want to protest. Say you're not a clown. Say you didn't sign up to be a jester in blood-soaked sand. But you say nothing. Because he's right. In the Colosseum, being funny might be safer than being strong. As long as they laugh, they might let you live. You lie down, eyes closed, feeling the throb of every new bruise. And you wonder, will the next fight be a comedy or a tragedy? Either way, you're still in the cast. They dress you in a wig. Long, tangled golden curls tumble past your shoulders, scratchy and knotted from 100 other heads before yours. You try to protest, but the costumer just grunts and secures it with a crude leather strap under your chin. Then they smear red pigment on your cheeks and paint your lips with something sticky and perfumed, sickly sweet, like spoiled flowers and cinnamon. The final touch is a toga dyed a deep shade of purple, tattered at the hem, but unmistakably regal. You're not a gladiator today. You're playing Helen of Troy. The crowd loves reenactments, especially the tragic ones. Today's match is billed as the Fall of Troy. Final scene, complete with flaming props, actors in Greek helmets, and you dressed as the legendary beauty, the face that launched 1,000 ships, clutching a tiny dagger and waiting for your scripted death. You glance at the blade. It's barely longer than your palm. Dull, decorative. There's no pretense of giving you a fighting chance. Your opponent is a hulking brute in full bronze armor, playing the part of Neoptolemus, the Greek warrior who, in myth, slaughters the last of the Trojans, including Helen, or not, depending on the version. Historians still argue whether these reenactments were meant to educate or simply shock. Some claim they were symbolic, a way to remind Romans of their cultural superiority. Others say they were little more than pageants with real bodies. In your case, it's not about myth or history. It's about humiliation. You're shoved into the arena as trumpets blare. The sand is freshly raked the sun high. Painted wooden towers, meant to resemble the city of Troy, are arranged at the edges of the stage. You wobble forward in your oversized sandals, toga dragging behind you, wig half over your eyes. The crowd explodes in laughter. They don't see a warrior. They see a joke. Neoptolemus enters with a dramatic twirl of his sword. His helmet is adorned with black horsehair. His chest plate glints with oil. He raises his arms, soaking in the applause. You feel the moment before it begins, that hush that inhale of 50,000 people waiting for the blood. The match starts. And by match we mean choreographed murder. You lunge forward with your toy dagger. He bats it aside effortlessly and knocks you to the sand with a shove. The crowd laughs. You crawl backward, panting. The wig slips. You leave it. Neoptolemus paces around you, raising his sword theatrically. You're meant to die now, stabbed in the heart, dragged by the ankle left twitching as the chorus of actors howls in Greek. But something happens. He pauses, looks up at the emperor's box. The emperor is drinking, not watching. So, your opponent improvises. He lifts you by the arm, spins you around like a doll, and throws you down again, closer to the fake flames of the burning Troy prop. He wants a better finish. You hear the crowd chanting something rhythmic and crude, your name maybe, or the name of the role you're playing. You can't tell anymore. You get up, stagger, drop the dagger, pick it up. You're not dying yet, not until the moment hits just right. And that's when he charges, sword raised, a sweep aimed for your chest. But this time you don't move the way you're supposed to. You drop again, but not backward, forward into his legs. He stumbles. The crowd gasps. You scramble up behind him and strike. The blade doesn't pierce, but it lands a smack across his neck that knocks his helmet sideways. He turns furious. That wasn't in the script. He slashes. The side of your arm burns blood real this time. You fall. The crowd cheers wildly. Now it's real. He advances, panting. And you realize he's not acting anymore. But before he can strike, a trumpet blares, a signal from the emperor's box. Mercy. The fight is over. You're spared again. Why? Because you broke the scene and the crowd loved it. You're no longer just the joke in a wig. You're unpredictable, and unpredictable is valuable. You're dragged from the sand, bleeding, dazed, your fake curls hanging from one shoulder. Someone wraps your arm. Someone else offers wine. You sip. Your opponent stomps off without a word. Later that night, the scribes paint a mural of the scene on the eastern wall of the arena. Helen defying Neoptolemus' dagger, raised wig, flying. It's a sensation. You overhear two handlers betting whether you'll be cast as Cleopatra next week. And for a fleeting moment you wonder what death by asp would feel like. Because here in the Colosseum, your fate isn't just death, it's narrative. And today, you rewrote yours. The cages weren't locked right today. You feel it in the air before anyone speaks, a certain tension, like everyone's blinking too fast, breathing too shallow. The handlers are whispering. The animal trainers are sweating. And the guard, who usually sneers when he throws you your gear, he won't meet your eye. Something's off. You're not scheduled to fight today. Supposedly. You're supposed to be resting, recovering from yesterday's little Helen stunt. But now you're being fitted with gear. A short sword, a rectangular shield, an old helmet that rattles when you move. You ask why. The handler just says back up. You're led to the inner arena, not into the tunnel, but the service paths, the ones lined with pulleys, gates, trapdoors, the underbelly of the beast. You stand with a few others, fighters, handlers, netmen, one poor soul with a broom staring at a heavy wooden gate that hasn't been opened in decades. You hear it before you see it. A roar, then another. The wooden gate shudders. A latch gives way. A crack opens. From the shadows emerges a lion. No handler, no rope, no chain. Just the lion. Its mane is matted with blood. Not fresh, not human. You hope. It steps forward slowly, then halts, then chaos, shouting, spears, netmen flinging rope. One man runs. Another tries to climb a pillar and fails, landing in a heap. You freeze. The lion doesn't. It surges forward, elegant, terrifying, fast. A net entangles its hind leg, but barely slows it. One of the handlers jabs a pike, misses. The lion pounces and drags him down like a toy. The screaming is immediate, and high above the crowd cheers. They think it's part of the show. The wrong gate was opened, you later learn. The beast was supposed to be caged until a later match. But someone, maybe drunk, maybe asleep, pulled the wrong lever. Now it's loose. And everything that follows, it's unscripted. You raise your shield just in time to deflect a lunge. The lion's paw swipes clips. Your helmet sends you spinning. Your back hits a stone column. You taste blood. You try to breathe. It's close. Closer than any human has gotten in a fight. It growls. You raise your sword. But even you know it's ceremonial. Dull. Decorative. Useless. And then a miracle or a twist of luck. A weighted net lands squarely on the beast's back. It thrashes tangled, long enough for 3 netmen to pin it with poles. A gate slams shut behind them, cutting off the path. One man loops a chain around its neck. It doesn't stop fighting, but it slows, snarling, foaming. Another handler jabs it with something sharp, a sedative spike. It staggers and drops. Silence. Not in the arena, in the tunnels. Everyone stares. You're still on your back, blood trickling from your scalp. Someone offers a hand. You don't take it. You just sit there, watching, breathing. That's when it hits you. There is no safety here. Not even backstage, not even when you're not supposed to fight. One wrong gate, one tired guard, one curious animal. And that's it. Your meat. Later, as they cart off the lion, still breathing barely, you hear someone chuckle. Better than the scheduled act. The phrase will stick with you because it's true. In the Colosseum, even disasters are ratings gold. Historians still debate how often animals escaped in the amphitheaters. Some say rarely, citing the Roman obsession with control. Others point to accounts of panicked crowds of spectators trampled during accidental releases. One senator reportedly lost a leg to a panther during what was meant to be a comedy skit. The point isn't whether it was supposed to happen. It's that it did. You're escorted back to your cell, still shaking. No one checks your wound. No one mentions the match that should have happened. Everything is swept under the sand. You sit for hours, numb. And then, as the sun sets, the crowd begins to file out. Laughter, footsteps, the clinking of coin purses. They're satisfied. You almost died. They were entertained. It's a fair trade in their eyes. You lie down on the stone floor, hand still clutching the dull sword, and wonder, what if the next gate opens wrong? What if you're the surprise? What if the crowd doesn't cheer? No one answers. Only the sound of a lion, now silent. Only the feeling of sand still stuck in your mouth. Only the knowledge that in this place you're not a man. You're a variable. And every day you're rolled like a dice. Today the wig stays off, but the embarrassment, it's just getting started. The costumers shove a bundle of fabric into your arms and point to a corner of the changing cell. No explanation, no instruction. You unfold the garment and feel your stomach drop. It's a dress, silk, pale pink, hemmed with gold thread, decorative and delicate, the kind of thing a Roman bride might wear to her second wedding if she were 20 years younger and 20 pounds lighter. You try to protest. The guard outside just grins. "You're the priestess today," he says. "Congratulations." You wait for the punchline. There isn't one. Because in today's performance, you are not a warrior. You are a prop in someone else's twisted morality play. And not just any play, a reenactment of a sacred ritual. You see, the Romans loved theatrical recreations of myth, legend, and history, especially ones that blurred the line between entertainment and execution. If they could force a condemned man to play a role before killing him, so much the better. Add a costume, a theme, some incense, and suddenly it's culture. You're shoved into the arena again. The dress is too small and clings in the worst places. You're barefoot. They've even powdered your face. The scene is already underway. The props are elaborate, a fake temple altar made of wood and plaster, red paint smeared like dried blood. A golden mask lies at its base. A line of men in animal skins chant off-key while pounding makeshift drums. Then the main act arrives. 3 former generals dressed as barbarian kings. The guards said they were just other prisoners, but you recognize them, real soldiers, once decorated, now disgraced. Their crimes no one knows. But today, their sentence is to play the conquerors, sent to defile the temple and silence the priestess. That would be you. They're armed, real weapons. One has a curved blade, another carries a club. The third has nothing but brass knuckles and an impressive sneer. The crowd is eating it up. You stand at the altar, empty hands, raised, unsure whether to beg or fight. The clubman rushes forward, grabs your arm, and swings you around like a rag doll. You fall, sand in your mouth. The crowd erupts. You're not sure what the script is, but clearly your pain is part of it. The other 2 close in. One kicks the dagger away you hadn't even noticed was there. The other lifts you by the collar and snarls a line you can't understand. You struggle. It's messy, undignified, and totally authentic. They love it. But then something changes. One of the generals looks up, squinting toward the emperor's box, then at the crowd, then at you. He hesitates. He's supposed to kill you. It's in the choreography, a symbolic sacrifice. They made it clear backstage. But maybe he's remembering something. Maybe he's just tired. Maybe he's had enough. He drops his sword. The crowd groans. Another man, the clubber, doesn't wait. He lunges at you, swinging wildly. You duck. Barely. He stumbles. The dagger, still nearby. You reach for it. He kicks you again. But this time your hand lands on the hilt. You spin. You stab. Right in the thigh. He howls. The crowd goes wild. Now it's a real fight. The generals break formation. All of them come at you. No choreography now. Just chaos. You dodge, crawl, flail. The curved blade guy cuts your shoulder. The brass knuckles man punches your face. You stab again. Miss. Get grabbed. Get thrown. Roll. Then a sound. A horn. Short. Sharp. The crowd stands. The match is stopped. Not because of mercy, because of confusion. This wasn't the plan. And in the Colosseum, improvisation without approval is dangerous. You're seized by handlers, the generals too. Everyone's dragged backstage. There's yelling. Someone's getting beaten. You don't know if it's you. Everything spins. And somehow, by the time night falls, you're back in your cell, still in the dress, still bleeding, but alive. Historians still argue whether reenactments like this were ritual theater or just glorified punishments with props. Some claim the priestess roles were meant to reflect Roman religious values. Others think they were simply a sadistic joke. You don't care. You just know that today you were a symbol, and tomorrow you might be a cautionary tale. Back in your cell, you tear the dress off, bundle it into a corner, press a rag to your cut. Someone passes by and snorts, "Nice legs, priestess." You don't respond because your face is swelling and your ribs feel cracked and your hands won't stop trembling and you're already wondering, what costume will they put on you next? They don't tell you he's coming. The handlers are tense. More guards than usual line the corridor. Everything smells cleaner. The floor's been swept, and for once the torches aren't flickering like dying beetles. They burn steady, tall, important. You ask what's going on. No one answers. But then you hear it. The creak of a gilded litter. The clang of sandals, polished and synchronized. And finally, the hush. That eerie, heavy hush. The emperor has arrived, which means today's match isn't just for sport. It's political. When the emperor attends in person, the entire Colosseum becomes a stage for subtle power plays. Executions double as messages. Victories are offerings. Every flick of his wrist, every raise of his thumb or eyebrow can change your life or end it. You're summoned, dressed, armed, painted again, this time not as a woman, not as a priestess, but as something unusual. You're told to stand straight, bow slightly, smile if you can. And then you're marched to the arena, not into the middle, but to a shaded corner under the podium where high officials drink wine and pretend not to watch you. There is an announcement, a long florid speech about betrayal, about honor, about a certain general who crossed the wrong man at the wrong time. They bring the man out, older, gaunt, hair still streaked with gray. You don't recognize him, but the crowd does. There's murmuring, some gasps. A high-ranking officer fallen from grace. The announcer says you are to face him in single combat, a public judgment, a test of worth. But there is a catch. He's still wearing partial armor. You are not. He's been given a sword. Yours is a spear with a cracked shaft. You're not here to win. You're here to die beautifully, to demonstrate in front of the emperor that justice is being served and the empire is merciful but firm. A man versus a criminal. Order versus chaos. But something goes wrong because he's not following the script either. He turns to you and mutters, "I don't want to kill you." You freeze. The gate slams shut behind you. The crowd cheers. The trumpet blares, and the man attacks. But his swing is wide, deliberately so. It misses by a hand's breadth. You jab forward on instinct, grazing his arm. He grunts, spins. It looks real. That's when you realize he's performing, just like you, except this time it's for each other. He parries with the flat of his blade. You counter with a flourish that Marcellus once taught you more dance than war. It becomes a rhythm, strike, spin block grunt. The crowd buys it, thinks it's dramatic, thinks someone's about to die. The emperor leans forward. You both see it. And then the general leans close, breath ragged, and whispers, "I'm going to fall. Now, make it look good." You nod. He steps forward. You swing the spear, aiming low. He staggers, stumbles, drops to his knees. You press the spear to his chest, not too hard. He coughs, collapses, clutching the wound that isn't there. The crowd rises. The emperor waits. This is the moment, the decision. You've heard the legends how emperors turned their thumbs to signal fate. Down for death, sideways for mercy, up for, well, historians still argue what thumbs up meant in Roman times. But today, the emperor does something different. He raises his goblet, nods, and waves his hand once, lazily. You are spared. Both of you are. The crowd erupts. Later, you're both dragged backstage, wheezing and bruised. No one says anything at first. Then a low-ranking guard chuckles. "Could have fooled me," he mutters. "Thought you got him good." You're too tired to smile. Back in your cell, the heat finally catches up to you. Your muscles ache. Your mouth tastes of dust and blood and fear. But something else lingers. A question. Why did the general let you live? Was it guilt? Pity strategy? Maybe he wanted to make a final gesture of defiance against the emperor, against the system, against the absurdity of it all. Or maybe he just didn't want to die alone. You lie back against the stone wall, thinking of his whispered words. I'm gonna fall now. In the Colosseum, even your enemies want to control their own exit. And you wonder when your fall comes, will you get to choose? Or will you simply be the next man dressed in meaning you didn't ask for, fighting a battle you never chose? The corridor outside grows quiet. The emperor has gone. But his decision still buzzes in your ears. You lived for today, and in this place that is both the victory and the sentence. You're handed a sword. At first, that seems like good news. It's full-sized, not bent. The blade is dull, but in the way all Roman arena weapons are dull, not blunted enough to be harmless, just unpredictable. Then comes the shield, cracked, heavy on one side. You knock it with your knuckles, it rattles. You glance at the handler. He shrugs. That's the one assigned. The armor isn't much better. One greave, a chest plate with a hole in it the size of your fist. The leather straps binding your wrist guard have frayed edges that slice your skin every time you move. No helmet. You ask why. Another shrug. Some equipment's missing, lost in yesterday's flood match. You blink. Flood match. He grins. You'll see. You won't, at least not today, because today's lesson is simple. Sometimes the fight is rigged, not just unfair, deliberately broken. You step into the arena and immediately realize what's happening. Your opponent, a stocky man with a wide jaw and calm eyes, is wearing nearly pristine armor. He's got two handlers adjusting the straps on his helmet. His sword gleams. His shield is reinforced. He looks at you like someone looks at a piece of fruit before deciding whether it's worth slicing open. He doesn't hate you. He just knows the role you're meant to play. You're the obstacle. The match begins without warning. No trumpet, no grand announcement, just a sharp metallic snap and the roar of the crowd. You raise your shield too slow. His first strike lands hard, sending shockwaves through your elbow. You stumble, step back, try to adjust. The shield slips. You try to tighten the grip. One of the leather loops rips clean off. The crowd laughs. You're supposed to last a few minutes. Maybe get in a lucky jab. Make him look good. The clumsy underdog role. So you play along at first. But then something changes. He overextends. A quick jab automatic and you clip his leg, just barely. But it's real. He grunts. The crowd gasps. Now the rhythm shifts. He's not just playing anymore. He's angry. He swings harder. Two-handed slashes meant to break, not impress. Your sword nicks his shoulder, not deep, but enough to draw blood. He roars, not like a showman, like a man who wasn't supposed to bleed. He slams into you, shield first. You go flying, land hard. Your back scrapes against the sand like glass. You taste copper. And then you hear something that chills you deeper than the pain. Booing. Not at him, at you. They think you're ruining the script, making the fight too ugly, too real. No one came to watch frustration. They want flair. From the Emperor's box, someone gestures. A new sword is thrown into the sand. Not yours, his backup, his real blade. You scramble up, reaching for your fallen weapon, but it's too far. He steps forward, picks up the new sword and tests it with a casual swing. It sings. He advances, and you realize this isn't about winning. It's about sending a message. You are no longer a character. You're a lesson. So, you do the only thing left. You perform. You limp in a wide arc, exaggerating your wounds. You fall to your knees, just outside his reach. You raise your cracked shield in both hands as if it could still save you. And he sees it. He hesitates, then drives the sword straight through it, down to the ground, just beside your ribs. A calculated miss. The blade lands in the sand inches from your side. And in that moment, you sell it. You scream, loud, convincing. You fall backward, twitching like a fish. The crowd erupts. From above, a signal, a horn. The fight is over. He raises his arms. You're dragged off like a corpse. It's what they wanted. Later in the tunnels, a handler nods approvingly. Good death. You cough up blood into a bucket and don't answer. Historians still argue how often matches were truly fought to the death. Some say most were staged with planned outcomes and fake wounds. Others claim the deaths were real, but often unnecessary, avoidable, prolonged, purely for drama. What no one debates is the rigging. Weapons tampered with, shields designed to fail, fighters drugged, poisoned, or weakened beforehand. One record tells of a gladiator whose helmet was filled with incense smoke before a match. He could barely see, died in 60 seconds. You were lucky. Your performance was entertaining enough to live another day. You lie in your cell that night, still in the shredded armor, the smell of cheap leather and dried blood thick in your nostrils. You close your eyes and think of the sword missing you by inches. Not mercy, not luck, just a man doing his job, and you doing yours, and both of you knowing the blade doesn't have to land to leave a scar. The first thing you hear is chanting. It's rhythmic, almost hypnotic, low and guttural, bouncing around the stone tunnels like a heartbeat coming from the walls themselves. You blink the dried blood out of your eyes and sit up slowly. You're still alive. That in itself feels like a minor betrayal of expectation. A guard walks past and tosses something through the bars of your cell. It's not food. It's a collar. Leather. Brass studs. Decorative. You pick it up. On the outside it looks theatrical, like something an actor might wear in a play about slaves and kings, but the guard doesn't laugh. He just nods toward it and says, "Put it on." You know what this is. Your property now. Not metaphorically. Officially, the games have moved you from condemned criminal to registered asset. You're not free, but you're no longer just fodder. You've been marked for the next level training. Because today you've been assigned a doctore, a trainer. He finds you before you're ready, tall with arms like tree trunks, and a face that looks like it's been carved from disappointment. His name is Vitulus. His nickname is the Ox. He doesn't smile. You've survived longer than you should, he says. Let's make that useful. The training yard isn't glamorous. It's a rectangle of sand behind the Colosseum's south gate, bordered by half-collapsed columns, and what smells suspiciously like a latrine. You line up with 5 others. 2 you recognize props from previous matches. 1 has a burn on his neck from a torch accident. Another limps from a deliberately broken ankle. The other 2 look terrified. Vitulus paces. No more improvising, he growls. No more flailing. You're not jesters. You're not meat. You're instruments. You perform. You follow the choreography. He walks up to you, points at your face. You, he says, you're the one who screamed like a stabbed goat last match. You blink. He nods. Good work. Then he hits you in the stomach with a wooden sword. Hard. You drop to your knees, coughing. He waits. Good, he says. Get up. The day becomes a blur. You're taught how to fall without breaking your spine, how to block without looking like you're trying, how to make a cut look deep without it being fatal. It's acting, but with more bruising. One drill involves getting knocked down repeatedly by a padded battering ram while screaming as loud as possible. Another has you flailing in mock terror as a net is thrown over your head just to teach you to stagger in the right direction. Because the crowd doesn't want skill, they want theatrics. You hear that word over and over. Theatrics. Theatrics. Make it look like you care, but it's not just about fakery. Some of it is real, more real than anything else you've done. How to hold a sword so the impact transfers to your shoulder and not your wrist. How to breathe when you're pretending to choke. How to bleed from the mouth on command. Well, by biting the inside of your cheek. By midday, you're covered in sand spit and shame. One of the other trainees collapses. Vitulus kicks him gently with the side of his sandal. Get up, he says. The man doesn't. He's not breathing. Vitulus sighs. 4 trainees now. No one removes the body. You just train around it. By evening, your hands are blistered, your throat raw from fake screaming, your ribs aching from real hits. Vitulus pulls you aside. You've got something, he says. Not sure what it is. Maybe it's stupidity. Maybe you don't know how to die. Either way, the crowd likes you. He doesn't sound pleased. You've been assigned to the next theme match, he continues. A mock trial. You're the criminal. Again. But this time you win. You stare at him. That's right, he says. You win. It's rare. It means they're building you up for something. You don't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. Because when they build someone up, it means they're planning to tear you down. Historians note that some gladiators became repeat players in staged narratives, heroes, rebels, mythical warriors kept alive longer than expected to generate drama and build fan loyalty. But the higher they rose, the more spectacular their scripted deaths had to be. You return to your cell that night. You don't sleep. You don't eat. You stare at the collar. The brass studs glint dully in the lamplight. You're not condemned anymore. You're not forgotten. You're a character now, and that might be the most dangerous role of all. You've been assigned a name, not your real name. No one remembers that anymore. Not the one shouted in your sentencing or the one scratched into the back of your cell. This one is crafted, deliberate, meant to ring through the arches of the Colosseum like thunder. Umbra, Latin for shadow. The crowd loves it. The announcer hammers it into every introduction. Behold the revenant of the sand, the silent blade, the ghost in flesh, Umbra. You didn't choose it. It was handed to you like everything else, your weapons, your meals, your fate. But strangely, it fits. Because today, you're not fighting to survive. You're fighting to win. The mock trial match is an established format. The accused criminal is given one last chance to prove their innocence in front of the gods and emperor alike by defeating righteous executioners in combat. You've seen it before. Usually ends badly, but this time the roles are reversed. The announcer frames you not as the villain, but the misunderstood soul, the falsely condemned, the broken soldier wronged by the system. You stand in the center of the arena, dressed in black leather armor, dyed to look scorched, your face painted in charcoal streaks. The crowd cheers, not ironically, sincerely. You feel it. They want you to win. Your opponents enter next. 3 of them, younger, shinier, newer. They wear polished bronze and stiff togas over armor symbols of the justice system. One carries a chain, another a gladius, the third a trident tipped with silver. The announcer gives them names too: Fides, Lex, Pietas, faith, law, piety. You almost laugh. Almost. The match begins. It's not a brawl. It's a narrative. They attack in sequence, like actors rehearsed. One swings high. You duck. One lunges. You spin. The third tries to flank too slow. You parry, strike, retreat. Your movements aren't just combat, they're performance. Each blow is placed for maximum visibility, each reaction timed with the crowd's breath. When you draw blood just a little, they gasp. When you land a proper hit, crowd explodes. And when you drop to one knee, panting, facing all 3, with nothing but a broken dagger, they roar. It's choreography, but with a real heartbeat. Midway through, one of the actors stumbles, genuinely loses rhythm, panics. He swings too hard. You deflect by instinct, but your counter lands too well. His head snaps back. Blood sprays. He falls. not a performance. He's out cold. A pause. The crowd freezes. You brace for punishment, but instead they cheer louder. Why? Because it's better this way. More drama. The remaining two recover quickly, switching roles. Now they're the cornered ones. You're the rising storm. You press your advantage. Sword flashing. Sand rising in clouds around your boots. You howl on cue and drive one of them back to the edge of the arena wall. He drops his weapon. You pause, blade raised. The Emperor's box waits. A signal is sent mercy. You lower your sword. The match is over. You've won. The verdict is spoken by the announcer with practiced flair. The gods have judged. Umbra is innocent in deed and valiant in soul. You're led out, not dragged. And the crowd chants your name, not your old name. Umbra. That night, a boy is seen carving your likeness into a wooden trinket outside the arena gates. Vendors sell tiny figurines of you with painted black eyes. A noblewoman pays to have your name engraved into her silver hair comb. You've crossed a threshold. You're no longer just a fighter. You're a brand. Vitulus visits your cell, tosses you a better sword. Not for today, he says. For next time. He looks at you the way a sculptor might examine a half-finished statue. You've got one or two big fights left in you, he says. They're building towards something. You nod silently, because you already feel it. You're being set up, elevated, polished, prepared, which means your end is coming. And when it does, it won't be quiet. It'll be a crescendo. Historians have noted that certain gladiators, those who gained fame, were often killed in grand finales designed to maximize emotion and ticket sales. Their stories became tragedies, their death's theater. You lie in your cell that night, blade across your chest. You feel the crowd's hunger still vibrating in your bones. They love you now, which means soon they'll want to watch you fall. The moment they tell you you'll be fighting with a child, something in your stomach drops. Not a metaphorical child, not some green new recruit or a barely trained adolescent. An actual child, 12, maybe 13, wearing armor, 2 sizes too large, and gripping a gladius like it's a garden tool. They say his name is Gaius. You're not sure if that's his real name or just what they're calling him for the program. He looks up at you with a wide-eyed mix of admiration and terror. He's your partner, says Vitulus. Try not to let him die too fast. You stare at him. Is this a joke? Vitulus shrugs. They're calling it puer et umbra, boy and shadow. People love contrasts. It's poetic. You're too tired to scream. And it gets worse, because you're also matched with a noble, some floppy-haired, perfumed patrician with a wine stain on his tunic and a sword clearly made for display, not use. He grins like he's at a dinner party. They said I'd be paired with the real shadow, he says, adjusting his decorative wristband. Can't wait to see the look on my wife's face. You blink. He continues, oh, don't worry. I've fenced. once, in Alexandria, or maybe it was a dream. So now it's you, a terrified child, and a swaggering idiot. Against who? Two secutores, heavily armored, real fighters with real scars. One of them is missing an ear. The other has tattoos all down his left arm, each one supposedly earned after a kill. The announcer declares it a contest of courage. You know it's a massacre in waiting. The crowd cheers as you're led out. You're no longer nervous. You're angry. They're not even pretending anymore. This match isn't about testing skill or entertaining combat. It's about spectacle chaos and the possibility, no, the promise of tragedy. You line up at the center of the sand. The boy's hands are shaking. The noble waves to someone in the front row. The horn sounds. The battle begins. It's all downhill from there. The noble charges first, wildly, like a drunk peacock. He makes it 5 steps before slipping in the sand and dislocating his shoulder. He screams, loudly. One of the secutores walks up, looks down at him, and with a flick of his sword, ends the performance. Not the man, the illusion. He stabs the noble not fatally, but firmly right through the thigh. Enough to end the threat, not enough to kill. The crowd laughs. That leaves you and Gaius. You shout to the boy, tell him to stay close. He nods. His sword trembles in his grip. The first secutor charges. You meet him, blades clashing. It's messy. He's stronger, faster, but you're smarter. You pivot, using the noble's fallen body as a brief shield. He stumbles, but the second secutor is already circling toward Gaius. You scream. He sees him too late. The armored man swings not with the blade, but the flat of it, slamming Gaius into the dirt. The boy crumples, not moving. You lose it. You spin, strike the first opponent hard across the face. His helmet shifts. Blood sprays from his lip. You slam your shoulder into him and send him reeling. Then you charge the second one. The sand barely slows you. You drop low, sweep his legs. He falls. You're on him in seconds, your sword pressed to his throat. He stops moving. The crowd is silent. For once, the noise disappears. Only your breath, ragged and furious, fills the air, and then the smallest sound. Gaius coughs. Alive. You drop the sword. The horn blares. The match ends. You're declared victor. But no one's cheering. They didn't get what they wanted. They wanted the boy to die, or the noble to scream louder, or you to fall in a blaze of pathos. Instead, they got reality, messy, uncinematic, survivable. Later, back in the tunnel, Vitulus meets you. He doesn't smile. That wasn't the script. You shake your head. They won't like it. You shrug. They might kill the boy anyway, he mutters. Quietly. Say he cracked his skull in the fall. You close your eyes. I'll make sure they don't, he adds. You believe him, not because he's kind, but because he sees something in you, and that boy's survival might add to your story. Another layer to Umbra. Back in your cell, you wash the blood off your hands. Not your blood. Not this time. Historians still debate the use of children in the arena. Some say it was rare. Others argue it happened more often than anyone admits, used for emotional impact to stir the audience, to push boundaries. The Colosseum was not limited by morality. It was powered by the absence of it. You lie down still dressed, the name Umbra echoing in your head. You were meant to die. You were meant to be forgettable. Instead, you protected a boy. You bent the script. And in doing so, you became dangerous. You dream of water, not the bathhouse kind with steam and citrus and clean linen towels. No, this water is brown, choppy, and cold. You're standing waist deep in it, armor dragging you down, and there's fire above you, shouts, arrows, sails, and a boat sinking. You wake up to the sound of real water, splashing, gurgling, and men cursing as they hoist a raft into the middle of the Colosseum, which now looks less like an arena and more like a small, grimy harbor. Today is a Naumachia, a water battle. Yes, the Romans flooded the Colosseum. Again. They do it rarely, not just because of the engineering, which is mind-bending, aqueducts, drainage tunnels, winches, and teams of slaves pumping water for hours, but because it's a logistical nightmare. Also, half the people in the match can't swim, including you. Vitulus doesn't care. You don't need to swim, he says. You need to float long enough to get stabbed artistically. You stare at him. He shoves a set of oars into your hands. Congratulations, he mutters. You're a rower today. The raft is a crude thing, 4 planks tied together with rope barely buoyant enough to hold 3 people. You, one netman, and a guy with a torch. Don't drop the torch, he says to no one in particular. The water's cold. The raft wobbles. The sky above is blinding. And the audience, they're delighted. This is new. This is fun. They've brought snacks, cushions. The Emperor's box has extra parasols. People chant and laugh as the first 2 boats collide badly. One flips, screams, splashing. 2 men surface. One does not. You paddle. Badly. The oar is splintered. The water is deeper than it looks. You have no strategy, just motion. The netman beside you shouts, "Left, left." You turn right. A flaming arrow misses your raft by a foot. It hisses into the water. "Oh, good," says the torch guy. They're doing fire now. What follows is not a battle. It's theater gone wrong. One group of fighters has clearly rehearsed. They row in formation, shout fake commands, in Greek throw javelins that land harmlessly in the water. Another group is made of prisoners in armor, too heavy, flailing like children tossed into a lake. You're somewhere in between, and then you get hit, not by a weapon, by a boat. Another raft slams into yours, tipping all 3 of you into the drink. You go under. The water tastes like blood and rust and oil. You kick wildly, blindly, limbs heavy from soaked linen and bad decisions. You break the surface, once gasp, then someone grabs your arm and hauls you onto a barrel. It's tied to a broken mast, floating. You cling. Your raft is gone. So is the netman. The guy with the torch now has the torch stuck in the rigging of another raft, which is on fire. Of course it is. And the crowd, they're cheering. Historians still debate the frequency and realism of Roman naval reenactments. Some claim they were small-scale plays. Others argue full naval battles, complete with hundreds of men, were staged in lakes and specially flooded arenas. The Colosseum's ability to host water battles is considered one of Rome's most impressive and impractical feats of architecture. You're not impressed. You're just trying not to drown. You paddle to the edge, gripping the rope line that marks the arena boundary. A guard sees you, throws down a ladder. You climb, half dead, fully soaked. He shrugs. Better than last time, he says. You're ushered into the tunnel like wet laundry. Someone throws you a towel. Someone else hands you wine. You down both. Later, you hear the official summary. Spectacular clash of titans on the sea of blood. No mention of the broken boats, or the drowned netman, or you coughing up water behind a pillar while a torch sets someone's hair on fire. Back in your cell, you strip the soggy tunic and sit in silence. Your legs are cramping. Your lungs hurt. You have a splinter the size of a dagger in your thigh. You still smell like the lake, and yet you're alive. Again. But there's something new tonight. On your wall, someone has scratched your name. Not the old one. Umbra. Just that. Just once. Deep. Clean. With care. You stare at it, wondering who did it. You stare until your eyes blur. Because for the first time, someone wanted you to be remembered. You're led into the holding cell, without explanation. That's nothing new. But today there are too many of you. Not 3, not 5, 50, packed shoulder to shoulder, sweating in the midday heat, each man clutching a different kind of weapon. Some are real swords. Some are kitchen knives. One man holds what looks like a farming scythe with the blade halfway rusted off. No one speaks at first. And then someone mutters, "Group melee." The words land like a knife in your stomach. Because when the Colosseum plans a group melee, it's not a contest. It's a harvest. 50 fighters enter. Only one leaves. And no, there are no teams, no alliances, no tactics, no strategy. This isn't a tournament. It's a mass culling. You glance around the room. Some faces you recognize, men you've shared bread with, slept beside, fought next to. Others are new, silent, already bleeding from previous fights. One man is praying, another is humming. You lean against the wall and close your eyes. There's no plan here, no preparation, just math. They need to clear the cells, make space, refresh the lineup. And what better way than to stage a bloodbath with enough narrative tension to keep the crowd on the edge of their cushioned seats? Vitulus appears, briefly leans in the doorway. "Don't be clever," he says. "Be lucky." Then he leaves. The gate opens. Sunlight pours in like fire. The arena is bare today. No props, no music, just sand, clean, flat, empty. The kind of emptiness that promises it won't be for long. You're herded out with the others, forming a rough ring. You can hear the murmur of the crowd, confused, curious, intrigued. They don't know what's about to happen. They will. The announcer steps forward, voice booming through the arena. Today we offer the gods a gift of blood, a storm of fate, a storm of steel. One victor, many fallen. Let it begin. And just like that chaos, there's no horn, no cue. Someone screams and lunges. The ring collapses inward. You duck instinctively, sidestepping a wild swing. A man falls to your left. Another pounces on him like an animal. Blood sprays across your arm. You sprint not toward the fight, but away, toward the wall. You need space, need air, need to think. Someone tackles you. You hit the ground hard. Roll stab upward. The blade finds ribs. Warmth pours onto your wrist. You push the man off. He doesn't get back up. You stand panting. Already 10 are down. The others are circling. Some band together, briefly trying to survive. But they fall just as fast. A group of 3 is overrun by a single madman with 2 daggers and no fear. He doesn't last long either. Every time someone shows strength, 2 more take them down. You're not trying to win anymore. You're trying to disappear. You stay near the edges. Let them fight. Wait for exhaustion. Wait for gaps. A man stumbles past you, bleeding dazed. You let him go. Another charges. You sidestep. Let another do the work. This is not cowardice. This is survival. Minutes stretch into lifetimes. The sand is soaked. The air smells like iron and ash. You lose count of the dead. Eventually, there are only 5. You, a Gaul with a broken nose, a former auxiliary soldier with one eye, a thief you shared a cell with once, and a quiet man with a limp and no visible weapon. You circle each other, breathing, bleeding, dying just a little already. The Gaul makes the first move, takes out the thief in 2 strikes, then charges the soldier. You jump on his back mid-lunge. Your blade finds his throat. You and the soldier collapse together. Now, it's you, him, and the limping man. The soldier grins. He has nothing left to lose. You trade blows. Your shoulder splits. His arm goes limp. You grab his blade, drive it in. He falls. Then the limping man steps forward. He holds up his hands, empty. He kneels, offers his throat. You hesitate. The crowd is silent, waiting. You look to the emperor's box. A nod. Just one, that's all. You close your eyes, and you don't strike. You drop the sword. The crowd roars. You're both spared. Why? Because the spectacle ended with mercy. And mercy today is fresh. Later, you're carried off. You don't walk. Your leg won't respond. A medic sews you up with a curved bone needle. He doesn't ask your name. He just mutters, "Next time, finish it." You don't reply. You lie on the slab. The crowd is still chanting, Umbra, Umbra, Umbra. You should be dead. But somehow, again, you lived. Historians have long speculated about the psychological toll of the mass melee fights, how the randomness, the cruelty, the betrayal warped the minds of those who survived. But what they never captured was the silence after, the deafening silence when all the blood dries, and you're the only one left breathing. You stare at the ceiling, at the cracks in the stone, and wonder, was this victory or just a narrower kind of loss? The days blur after the melee. No more training, no more staged matches, no more surprises, only the waiting. You're not thrown back into combat right away, and that's what frightens you most. Because when the Colosseum goes quiet around someone like you, someone who keeps surviving, who's become too visible, it means the next show isn't just a match. It's a send-off. You lie in your cell, ribs bandaged, eye swollen, and think about how many different versions of death you've rehearsed here. You've drowned, been torn, burned, cut, mocked, painted, celebrated, but not finished yet. Then comes the knock, not from Vitulus, from a man in a toga dyed pure black, official, sterile. He doesn't speak to you directly, just hands a note to the guard. The guard reads it, grunts. To the armorers, he says, you're going to be fitted, not for training, not for punishment, for a finale. The armory is colder than you remember, more organized. No scattered spears, no blood-slicked chainmail. This is the clean part of the empire, the curated stage that the audience never sees. You're brought before 3 men with calloused hands and measuring ropes. One nods. Another mutters something about symmetry. They begin to dress you like a legend. The armor is black and silver polished to a shine. Not ceremonial, not practical. It's crafted. The breastplate has a wolf's head etched into it. The helmet, curved, sculpted, theatrical, has no plume, but 2 arched horn-like ridges curling above the brow. Your arms are bound in greaves shaped like ribs, your legs armored with overlapping plates like feathers. The costume is clear. You're playing death. The announcer will probably call you the Shade of Rome or the Silent End. You know how it works now. They build you up, not because they want you to rise, but so that your fall echoes. You ask, finally, who am I fighting? The armorers don't respond. You ask again. One of them looks up. Everyone. You're not sure what that means until you're escorted into the holding pen and see them 6 men, all armed, all armored, all watching you. Like the final course of a feast they've waited too long to eat. You recognize them. Former champions. Trained gladiators. Not prisoners. Not amateurs. Not disposable. Each one has a name. A following. Tattoos. Scars that were featured in stories. You remember hearing about one of them? Felix the Flame, after he killed 3 men in a fire-ringed duel and bowed with one arm still burning. You're facing a greatest hits compilation. They've gathered all the surviving legends from the last 3 seasons of blood, and now they're throwing them at you. The match is announced before you even step onto the sand, the Umbra reckoning. The name rolls like thunder. It's not a fight, it's an event. You enter the arena through a different gate, this time one reserved for heroes. A carved wolf's head above it, a symbol, a joke. The sun is high, the sand is raked, and in the stands you see something you've never seen before. People wearing your symbol, black ribbons tied to their arms, painted eyes across their cheeks, children holding crude wooden daggers, shouting your name. You've become more than a fighter. You've become a myth. And that's why they have to kill you. Because in Rome, myths don't retire. They fall, one by one, gloriously. The trumpet sounds. Your opponents circle you. No staging, no pageantry. They want to be the one who lands the finishing blow. There's something electric in the air, more than fear, more than thrill, tension. And then Felix attacks. You block pivot strike. The clashing metal echoes across the stone. Another follows. A spinning strike. You duck, slam your elbow into his ribs. You parry, faint cut. The first draws blood. The crowd gasps. They weren't expecting you to last a minute. You're halfway through the second when you drop one of them clean. A boot to the knee. A twist. A cut. He stays down. 5 left. You're hit twice. Once in the thigh. Once across the jaw. You spit blood and laugh. Why not? This is your end after all. You decide to write it yourself. The match lasts longer than it should. You're not supposed to make it past 3, but you're already 4 men in, covered in bruises, armor cracked, breathing ragged. You stab the 5th through the shoulder. He screams, rolls, yields. Only Felix remains. The arena is silent. You face him. No words, just blood. He charges. You meet him. Steel on steel. His sword breaks your helmet. You fall. He raises his blade. You're on your knees. Your head pounds. You wait. And then he drops his sword. The crowd gasps. Felix steps back, raises your hand, and yells, "Umbra lives!" Just once. The arena shakes, and the emperor doesn't raise his hand. But he nods. You're carried out that day not as a victor, not even as a survivor, but as a symbol the crowd wouldn't let die. Not yet. Back in the tunnel, someone presses a cloth to your wound. Your blood is still hot. You're still breathing. And as you fade into unconsciousness, one thought echoes through the spinning dark. You were meant to fall. But somehow, you're still standing. The pain is different now. Not sharper, not worse, just heavier. It hangs on your limbs like old chains, dull and familiar. When you wake, you no longer flinch. You just blink, check for blood, count your fingers, breathe. You're alive again. And that fact, still breathing, is no longer the miracle it used to be. It's something stranger, something harder to name. They don't throw you into a new fight this time. They let you rest, which is terrifying, because when the Colosseum grants silence, it's not mercy, it's rebranding. You've seen it before. A fighter becomes too popular, too mythic. The crowd begins to chant their name before the announcer even speaks. They become a face on ceramic mugs, a story whispered to children, a mural scratched in the bathhouse wall. And then one day they're gone. No funeral, no match. Just silence. Because Rome doesn't let its monsters retire, or its legends grow old. You're summoned not for a fight, but for a walk. Escorted by two handlers through halls you've never seen. Polished, decorated. No blood here, no chains. Eventually, you're brought into a room with tapestries and cooled air. A man waits. You've never seen him before, but his posture says enough power. Not military, not brutal, bureaucratic. He gestures to a seat. You sit. I'm told you've lasted longer than anyone expected, he says without looking up. That you're beginning to influence outcomes. You say nothing. He finally looks at you. I'm not asking for your thoughts, Umbra. I'm offering you an option. You wait. There's a villa, he says, in the hills outside Capua. Quiet, staffed, safe. No blood, no sand, no chance. You blink. He continues, but you must disappear. Today, no farewell, no ceremony. The crowd will be told you fell in training. A statue will be commissioned. Your name will echo for a year, maybe two. Then they'll move on. You finally speak. Why? He shrugs. Because the emperor is superstitious. You've won too often. Survived too much. The people talk. Some call you an omen. He leans forward. And because, if you fight again, they'll have to kill you. You understand. You are too big now. Too hard to control. Too inconvenient. He opens a scroll. Hands it to you. Your name. Your mark. A seal. A release. Signed. You could go. Right now. Live. Breathe air that doesn't smell of iron. Die of something slow, far away from cheers. You roll the parchment slowly. Feel the weight of it in your hands. And then you hand it back. The man's face barely changes, but you see it. Disappointment. No. Confirmation. You're let out again. Not to your cell, to the gates. And this time when you enter the arena, there is no opponent. Just you and 50,000 people waiting to see what you do. You walk to the center. You raise your arms, and they chant. You could leave. You still could. But you don't. Because the Colosseum didn't just shape you. It became you. You are not Umbra, the fighter. You are Umbra, the ghost that Rome built. And this is your empire now. You raise your sword. Just once. And the chant doesn't stop. It builds. and you realize your story is no longer yours. It belongs to them, and that is the final perfect trap. And now your story fades into stillness. The roar of the crowd softens into a murmur. The clang of swords becomes a faint rhythm, like the last heartbeat of a sleeping lion. The sand cools beneath your feet. The sun drifts behind the marble rim of the Colosseum, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the arena floor. You are not standing anymore. You are lying down, somewhere cool, somewhere quiet. Your body rests heavy with memory, but unburdened. Your hands no longer grip steel. They simply rest. Above you, the stars begin to gather. Their light is pale and slow, not sharp like torch fire, but kind, gentler than anything you ever knew. Inside those stone walls, the Colosseum still exists, yes, but it is behind you now. Its noise, its violence, its hunger, all behind you, all distant. You hear only the soft wind through olive trees and the slow creak of leather as you shift your weight one last time into stillness. There is no sword to lift, no opponent to face, only the silence that you've earned. And as you close your eyes just for a moment longer, you feel what you never thought possible in that place, peace. You are no longer a symbol, no longer a name. You are simply you, and you may rest. Good night, Umbra. Sleep well.